Whenever you're ready, yes.
Okay, good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting. Clerk?
Closed session for today, February 8th, 2022. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, conference with County Designated Labor Negotiators Judy Hawkins and Shay Johnson regarding the following employee organizations: Calaveras Management Union, Calaveras Supervisors Union. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code 54657B1, public employment, title, planning director. Item 3, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Greer et al. Versus Calaveras County, Calaveras County Superior Court, case number 18CV43460. Item 4, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, re-anticipated litigation, one case, significant exposure to litigation. Item 5, pursuant to Code 54657B1, public employee performance evaluation, titles, planning director, chief building official, county librarian, environmental management administrator, public works director, county counsel, county administrative officer, health and human services agency director.
Thank you. And with that, is there any public comment? Is there any online?
There is no online public comment.
Okay. With that, we will convene into closed session.
I'm sorry, just one moment. Did you?
I do have a comment. Sorry. I'm requesting to withdraw the closed session for negotiations because we do have signed agreements with both units, which you will hear later today.
I still want to go into closed session on that. I have something after that.
Okay.
Okay.
And there's still no online public comment.
Okay. Thank you. We'll keep that on the agenda due to board member comment. Okay, we'll convene in a closed session. We'll be back at 9. Thank you. Good morning and welcome back. At this time, the board will be reconvening back into closed session after the regular scheduled agenda. So with that, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have staff announcement. Ms. Medina.
Good morning, Madam Chair, respective board members, CAO Von Lotta, Deputy Clerk of the Board, and our Calaveras community. Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency. Today, EMA has a few announcements for our animal services and agricultural departments. This Saturday, February 12th, we are proud to announce our second annual Valentine's Day adoption event. We have had record adoptions over the past several months, but there are many more fur babies in our care that need forever homes. During recess, you will see Ripley on our PowerPoint display. I would like to share a very heartwarming story about our Ripley. Ripley came to us in May of 2021. He arrived at our shelter as a stray and was not in very good shape. His coat was a mess, his hair was falling out, he was underweight, and he got sick every time he ate. After a few trips to the veterinarian, we learned that he needed a daily thyroid pill and special food for his sensitive stomach. In a few weeks after his treatment and lots of loveys, Ripley was transformed into a handsome, vibrant, affectionate kitty with a gorgeous coat and was very playful. are happy to announce Ripley has found his forever home with a kind family that have other special need animals. 2 young girls came into our shelter looking for cats who had been at the shelter the longest and needed to be adopted. They chose Ripley. We are so grateful to this special family for loving him and giving him a forever home. Our animal staff and volunteers will miss him as we have become very attached to him. However, we know that Ripley is in a loving home now and that his story has ended because not ended because some kind person had faith in us and brought him to our shelter back in May, knowing we would take good care of him. We cannot do this without our volunteers. At this time, I would like to thank our kitty volunteers and Cynthia Pino, who works to make sure our cat volunteers are scheduled, facilitates the glamour kitty shots you see on our PowerPoints, maintains statistics for our kitties, and so much more. And this is a little quote from Cynthia. Cynthia says, "I am so glad that a Good Samaritan brought him to the shelter after she noticed him wandering the streets for a while. He probably would not be alive if she hadn't done so. I am so grateful to the shelter for getting him the medical care he needed, to the staff and the volunteers who brought this amazingly wonderful cat back to health, and that there are people in our community who come to the shelter wanting to adopt a special needs kitty." Thank you, Cynthia. Our next animal service announcements is for our first 2022 Focus and Animal Services free rabies and microchip clinic to be held here at the Government Center, Saturday, March 12th. Dr. Jenny Gaitlin will be the attending veterinarian, so please come and see us. EMA's next announcement will be provided by our Agricultural Commissioner, Jesse Fowler, regarding National Invasive Species Week at the end of this month. Take it away, Jesse.
Hey there.
Sorry, I'm being promoted to a panelist. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good morning. Morning, Madam Chair and honorable members of the board. I'm here to let you know that later this month, February 28th to March 4th, is National Invasive Species Week. What is an invasive species? It's any non-native species, be it plant, insect, or animal, that grows and reproduces rapidly, displaces native species, and causes major disturbances to the areas in which they are present. This is an important week to bring awareness to the many non-native and invasive plant, insect, and animal species that can have a negative impact to our agriculture, landscaping, and natural resources across the nation and the state. And we thought this is an excellent time to let you know that every week is an invasive species week for Calaveras County's Agriculture Department. Our Agriculture Department is constantly on the lookout for known and new invasive species so we can remove them before they make Calaveras County their permanent home. We do this 3 ways. First is through our pest exclusion program, where we inspect nursery stock, beehives, and other agricultural products shipped into our county to make sure they are free from unwanted hitchhiking pests. Second is through our pest detection program, where we place insect traps across Calaveras County to be on the lookout for exotic insects such as glassy-winged sharpshooters, gypsy moths, and Mediterranean fruit flies, so it's to protect crop, forest, and landscape health by removing these insects before they become established. Third is through our pest eradication and management programs, where we survey for and control invasive weeds of concern like spotted knotweed, perennial pepperweed, and gorse. But the fight doesn't stop there. Our department needs your help to keep invasive species out of Calaveras. This can be done by making sure that you don't move or ship backyard plants or fruits outside of the county without first contacting the Agriculture Department to see if there's any pest restrictions in your area. Cleaning your hiking boots, waders, boats and trailers, off-road vehicles, and other gear in between outings. Clean your fishing equipment and don't dump live bait. Buy forage hay, mulch, and soil certified as weed-free. And then take extra care when traveling, gardening, or moving recently killed plant material so as not to spread unwanted seeds. If you see a plant, insect, or animal species that you think might be an invader, call our Agriculture Department and find out if you have a species of concern trying to move into your neighborhood. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Fowler.
Yes.
Ms. Fowler, Are we going to be doing anything to talk to the public or educate the public about mosquitoes and no standing water? And because that, what you're talking about doesn't necessarily apply to general neighborhoods. Thank you.
So as far as the mosquitoes, so those are they're a pest, but they're not invasive. But we absolutely we are here for the public if they do want. We have our mosquito fish program. So if they have any standing bodies of water that they have issues with mosquito larvae and want to keep the mosquitoes down, they can contact our office and we can get them some of the mosquito fish. Otherwise, yes, we work in conjunction with environmental health with Lisa and her team to make sure if there's any like swimming pools or other bodies of water that should be cleaned, be better taken care of, sanitized, so that we can keep the larvae out. Absolutely, yes. We want to make sure that we're there for the residents of Calaveras.
Thank you. Sorry, wrong section.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Are there any other questions from board members? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other staff announcements?
There is no online staff announcements requested.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Medina and Ms. Fowler. We'll move on to general public comment. This is any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Martina Calaveras, and I am here to hopefully somebody will listen to me. We have a neighbor at 3232 Berkesy Lane, and they have started a boat business in July of 2020. That's a residential area. On top of it, they have dogs that are barking constantly. We have documented it. I have sent it to animal control. About 6 months ago, we both went there. My husband has PTSD. Every time the dogs are barking, it's a trigger. He fought for your and mine freedom in Vietnam, and he bought the place to have peace and quietness. I have gone to animal control, talked to Kathy Bailey, I think her name is, Bendy, and I said, what else can we do? You know what the answer was? Move. I was ready to hit her in plain English. I never did. I kept my calm, but I'm here at my wit's end to have something done. Somebody listens to me. How would you feel if the dogs are barking constantly? And I have documented it. I have video. Enough is enough. Also, the other one is, I contacted Cody Anderson from Code Compliance. First, all is good and dandy. He will say, oh yeah, we'll take care of it. Last September, he said, oh no, they cannot bring any more boats in. Last Sunday, a boat was brought in. So what's that tell you? The people don't comply, and Code of Compliances just sits there, in my opinion. This is going on since November and July of 2020. Don't you think something needs to be done? That we as retired people can live in peace in the country? So I was hoping that somebody will take the time, take my contact. I'm willing to work with you. I have, next door to us, not long ago, there was a marijuana bust. It was horrible. That will trigger problems. The people came. We said, can we give you some water? No, we're not accepting anything. I said, can I bake you a peach cobbler? We did. We went to the sheriff's office and we gave the peach cobbler. They were happy. So what happened? We got a wonderful, nice letter from the sheriff's department, and I thought, oh, there's my contact. Maybe he can help me. He knows people. Well, a police officer called me. He said, no, ma'am, that's not my jurisdiction. There we go again. Nobody seems to know who can take charge. Is anybody of you maybe able to help me? That would be wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are there any other public comment?
There is no further online public comment.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any board member that wishes to pull an item from consent agenda? Seeing none, is there any public comment?
There is no online public comment on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. With that, is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Next, we'll move on to the regular agenda, which is item number 18.
Agenda item number 18, informational item brought to us by OES. Receive a tree mortality program implementation update from the TSS consultants.
Mr. Osborne.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Honorable Supervisors. John Osborne, your Director of Emergency Services. I have with me our Tree Mortality Project Manager, Tad Mason. Tad, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Very good. Good morning, Madam Chair. And
let me share my screen here real fast.
Thank you, John, for managing the slide deck. Very good. So, good morning, Madam Chair and board members. This is Tad Mason, as John noted. This is the 5th year of our project management role with the Tree Mortality Program. This will be the first quarter summary, basically going over accomplishments for 2021 and talking about the path forward. So far with this program, we have implemented 37 projects with, as you can see on the slide, a little over 10,000 dead and dying trees removed along county roads. Our focus is county road systems, egress, ingress, and so far we've been pretty successful. No damage to properties, no employees injured, fingers crossed, but things have gone quite well. In 21, we had 4 projects completed with just over 1,000 trees removed. As these trees are removed, of course, our contractors are seeking out highest and best use for that timber. Some of the logs are going to local sawmills. Some are going into composting operations, and some actually go to animal bedding. There's an animal bedding plant down near Sonora. So as these trees are removed, we're trying to find highest and best use for them, of course. Let's see, we're coordinating with the Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. Those 2 agencies, of course, manage land. There's also adjacent to county road systems, and close coordination with them for removal of trees on their jurisdiction is an important part of our process. In 2021, we conducted wide-ranging surveys throughout the county and came up with a new inventory of hazard trees for removal. That inventory will result in 7 new projects removing just over 1,100, involving just over 1,100 private properties, not including, of course, PLM and Forest Service. we'll be working with them in addition. Slide number 2 here summarizes all 37 projects. I'd like to call your attention to the column on the right, number of trees. Total number of trees, as you can see, comes to 10,581 trees removed. The scale of our projects, we try to make them such that local contractors, many of them are small enterprises, and we try to scale these projects so that they'll have an interest in participating and providing a proposal, as opposed to some, of course, larger tree removal projects, such that larger contractors, with a little more efficiency and cost effectiveness, will also participate. Next slide. This is just an image of an example of before and after once we remove the hazard tree. Next. So we're looking forward to this year, of course, with the 7 projects that are planned. 39A is the first one up. It's in Big Trees Village. It's almost 300 trees and proper pruning. A local contractor based out of Murphy's is our go-to contractor. Due to heavy snowfall this past December, this project's currently on hold, but as soon as the snow dissipates, we will be back at it. Next slide. 39B is next on our list. Bids were due on January 20th, and Joe's Logging, based out of Bass Lake, was the contractor of choice. We're currently working with Joe. He started this past Saturday on this particular project. It's 525 trees in the greater Arnold area. This is scattered over about 300 private parcels. Next slide. Project 37 shown here, as you can see, is between McCallum Hill and Copperopolis, basically west of Highway 49, and it is not a big project, just 64 trees, but it is currently out for bid on public purchase, and we expect a bid here shortly. Project 38 is also being worked on, and that is 61 trees up between Murphy's and Arnold. Next slide. Thank you, John. Okay, 39C and Project 40 are in process. 44 parcels on 39C and 43 on 40. We're still marking the trees on those particular projects. Included in projects 38 and 40 is 47 trees located on BLM management lands, and we've coordinated closely with that agency to remove those hazard trees. We're still reaching out to a number of landowners that have yet to sign and return right of entry forms. This is an ongoing outreach project. We're working with the director of County OES on this through a variety of outreach efforts, through the print media, through radio stations. We're doing the best we can to reach out, and including mailing back repeatedly to some of these landowners. And I will be candid, it has been a little bit of a frustration trying to get these landowners to participate. As far as ongoing issues with tree mortality, of course, we're experiencing another dry spell here. We're hoping that this changes, of course, but we are continuing to see newly dead and dying trees in our project areas, and it's just ongoing. All species involved, from oaks in the front country west of Highway 49, all the way up to the true fairs at the higher elevations up above Big Trees Village. Next slide.
Oop. Sorry about that.
No problem. This is just a summary sheet portraying, as we typically do with these quarterly reports, the financial summary of all the different projects and number of trees removed, as well as net reimbursement. Bottom line, the cost per tree for removal is almost about $500. You can see that on the left there. And as far as the county expenditure, it's been a little over $86,000. And doing the math, this equates to about $8.15 per tree invested by the county. And we think that's a pretty good return on investment. As far as Cal OES's participation at 75% of the cost of these projects, it is ongoing, and the state has assured us that they plan to continue until further notice. So if there's any change in this arrangement, they have promised to provide plenty of lead time, but for now it's full speed ahead. John, back to you.
Thank you, Ted. Just a couple of noteworthy things I'd like to point out about our project. And one of the things that is a feature of our program is the actual removal of these dead and dying fuels from our forest. You see the ground here, we don't leave slash, and we remove the dead or dying fuel, and as Tad said, it either goes to a sawmill or a regen plant or the shavings plant to be used. That's different in some of the other fuel mitigation programs that you'll see, in that you'll see them cut down or leave slash behind, and all that really does is rearrange the fuel from upstanding to on the ground, which has its advantages, but obviously the preferred method would be to completely remove the fuel from our forest, which is our normal practice. There are times that we do have to chip some slash and broadcast chip it, but normally it looks much like what you see here in this tree from Project 36. The other thing of note is the projects west of 49 are obviously in the lower elevations, and they are not in the forested areas. They're more of the grasslands, so there are going to be fewer trees affected. So that's why you see the lower tree counts here. Is the infestation is just different because of the number of trees. And then lastly, what you see here is this $498.99 per tree figure that you're seeing. If a private landowner, one of our constituents, was to remove these trees by themselves, it's likely that the costs would be much higher. We're able to create projects that drive down the per tree cost because we're able to couple multiple trees into an area, bring equipment in the area, and it saves money on equipment movement and the cost of each tree because we're doing them essentially in bulk. And lastly, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board or the public may have.
Supervisor Powell.
One, I want to thank TSS. I am not hearing complaints like I had before about the slash left on the ground from the contractors that you use, so that's appreciated. They're really cleaning up after their projects. A question I have, John, is are we encouraging or doing any outreach to local to the small tree trimming companies. I know they're all pretty busy, but we had Gary, remind me of the thing where about hiring local, if we're using any local monies, a preference, local hiring preference?
So we do outreach to companies that we've worked with in the past. When we extend an invitation to bid, we have a list of tree contractors in the area, as well as the invitation to bid is posted in a public manner so that they can anybody can bid from it. We've had bids from as far away as like Plumas County all the way down to outfits based in Southern California, and just about everything in between.
Well, that's local if you're considering the state of California. I'm considering local being Calaveras County.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, when state and federal monies are involved, it's generally impermissible to give a local preference, and we have to go with the low bidder.
That I understand. But I just thought since the county is paying a portion of it, could the county's funds be used for them? That's what I was asking. But also the third, so the answer is what you're saying is no. Okay, I got it. We can't divvy it up. I was hoping we could. Could you please send me the contact information on what we're doing to reach out? Because I will reach out to local property owners through my medium to get them to return the forms. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, and we'll make sure that we extend that to you. Thank you.
Supervisor Garamendi?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Tad and John, thank you very much. This is about the best return on investment I think we could possibly get. So I'm glad this program is continuing. I'm glad the state is continuing to fund it because we're getting good for the community and we're getting a good deal for the county. And thank you for explaining what the white CCs were on the oak trees west of 49. I was going to ask about that. I saw a few of them over the weekend. My question is, when you it's been 7 years since the Butte fire, and we're having trees that are dying within the footprint that had not, that are not, victims necessarily of the fire, but of the drought. I was wondering if we could expand our survey to take a look at trees that may have died since the fire within that area to expand, because we're getting more and more calls into Public Works and others about trees that are threatening our public right-of-ways. It'd be great within the fire zone. It'd be great if we could see if we could include that. And I will leave that to you guys to figure out, but it would be nice if we could.
I agree, Supervisor Garamendi. We do still have the Butte Fire Hazard Tree Project in play at this time. And we would, in the future, hope to be able to come in and look at the trees that have died not because of the Butte Fire, but because of the drought and the bark beetle infestation. What we're finding more often than not, when our office is contacted regarding our tree mortality program, I took a call last week regarding trees that were healthy as soon as 4 months ago, and now are showing signs of stress and actually dying because of the increased drought conditions that we had from the dry last winter. We had a great start to this water season. And it's kind of, we've hit this dry spell in January, and it looks like it's extending into February. So we expect to see more fresh mortality, if that makes sense, as we move through. And really, from an overall standpoint, that's why you still see us going back through areas that we've gone through multiple times, basically for two reasons. People that didn't return right of entries the first couple times that we worked through there are now looking at these trees and realizing the hazard that they present, and fresh mortality from the existing conditions in the forest. Tad, did I cover that or anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, John, I think you did a great job. I would like to reiterate, as you just did, the fact that unfortunately, this tree mortality situation is ongoing. And unless there's some real changes in our precipitation, I don't see that changing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't either.
Great. Well, I tell you what, the final Butte Fire project, it would be wonderful to put that all to bed and have completed those projects and wrap up Butte Fire as far as our piece with OES goes. But and certainly, I appreciate you guys willing to take a look at trees that have died subsequent to the fire due to the circumstances that you guys put out, because you're right, it's ongoing. So thank you both very much.
Very welcome.
Are there any other board comments? Is there any public comment?
There is no online public comment.
Okay. Other than that, thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thanks for hearing us.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 19.
Item 19, action item brought to us by Integrated Waste Management. Find exempt from CEQA, introduce and waive full reading of ordinance adding Article 7 to Chapter 8.12 of the County Code to comply with SB 1383 regulations concerning edible food recovery and authorize summary publication.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Paul Ferriani, Integrated Waste Manager. Today, Integrated Waste wants to introduce an ordinance to comply with to the county code that complies with Senate Bill 1383. Senate Bill 1383 is a 75% diversion over the next 5 years to landfills, and that's going to, of course, reduce landfill gas, mainly methane. On December 14th, the board passed a resolution, rural jurisdiction exemption, and that was approved by Calaveras on December 29th of last year. And the next steps to adopt an ordinance for commercial edible food recovery, Cal Green building standards, model water efficiency, landscape standards, and the resolution that was passed on the 14th basically exempts us from a big chunk of 1383. Anyway, I'm here to answer any questions, and I also have Jennifer Pratt, Integrated Waste Department Analyst, Julie from County Council. I don't see Doug or Lisa, but...
Lisa is present as well.
Pardon me?
Lisa is present.
Oh, Lisa's, okay.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Jen, and everybody who's worked on this. As I read through this agenda item yesterday, it seemed to me that we don't really have a choice here. I don't have to like this at all, which I don't, but we have to do this, correct?
Yes, we do have to do that. We have to move this forward. Otherwise, we run the chance of penalties. It's statewide. It's been they've been trying to do this actually after AB 939. This has been an effort since 2004, 2014. They tried. There's Senate Bill 1826. We're exempt from that, and this is the final push. And we're exempt from a lot of it. It's doable.
Okay, well, I was just looking at it, I was thinking there's a lot of monitoring and a lot of reports, and no money comes with this. So it's an unfunded mandate from Sacramento. I guess we just have to
hopefully
take the pill, right?
Make the reporting simple. CalRecycle does not have any forms at this time, so I think for the first year or two, it's going to be, just the jurisdictions, which would be the counties making the reports. They're due in October.
It was great. I was went to the CalRecycle website. Most of it had been updated as recently as 2015, so I'm glad to see they're catching up. Thank you, Paul.
Supervisor Calloway? Oh, I'm sorry.
I definitely do not like this. wrote Paul over the weekend. I find this bureaucratic to the extreme. It does a lot of it. I believe in the concept. I have no problem with the concept. I do have a problem that there's things in this ordinance that do not apply to Calaveras County at this time. We do not have, I mean, just simple. We do not have a hotel with 200 rooms. We do not have a restaurant 5,000 square feet serving over 200 people. It puts the onus on the resource connection or on the senior centers or on some of the church food banks to pick up the food and then do paperwork. We're the ones that have to apply for, have to manage it. So, and then, the one that put me over the top is acts of God. If that's the case, then all the money that PG&E paid for the Butte fire needs to be returned. What I was asking, is there any way we could write the ordinance taking into what is agreed upon, what the bill says as it applies to Calaveras County today? In 2026, we're going to have to modify it anyway. And if there's any changes that can occur or that would need to occur, we get a hotel of over 200 rooms or a restaurant that's 5,000 square feet, we can do an addendum to the ordinance. This is to, if Tom Tryon was on the board, he'd be clapping for me. But I cannot support this. I did ask, council said it's something we have to do. Paul said it is something we have to do. My feeling is this should not be something. I was just irate when I read the bureaucracy of what we're putting in an ordinance that does not apply to Calaveras County. Now, I know Paul was very complimentary of RCRC and what they've done to exclude rural counties. When the chair was on the city council, I know they were involved with getting an exclusion for rural counties as part of the league. But at some point, I feel like we need to say, this is not appropriate. And so as much as I believe in the concept, and I heard Supervisor Garamendi saying we have no choice, my feeling is we need to say we have a choice. We put in what is applicable to Calaveras County. Okay, so the resource connection or the two senior centers we have, they have to go pick up the food. You know, they're all operating with volunteers. Yeah, and okay, they have to do paperwork. I'll negotiate on that. But to have things in here that do not apply to this county and probably other rural counties, I'm willing to do what I can to modify the bureaucracy that is in this ordinance. Sorry, Mr. Ferrin, thank you, and Ms. Mont, I appreciate your feedback, but until we return the money that PG&E gave for the Butte fire, I am not supporting under acts of God.
I want to point out that PG&E was found culpable for the fire, Butte fire.
That's not in the ordinance. It says fires are under acts of God.
Supervisor Stopper.
Interpretation. I want to agree with I would like to agree with my fellow supervisors about the state overreach, especially when it comes to this. Underneath the guise of some good, but I mean, just reading here, you know, this ordinance requires commercial edible food generators as defined by state law to arrange to have the maximum amount edible food that would otherwise be disposed be recovered for human consumption. So if it's bad, you better feed it to someone. No. Well, it says it right here. That's their justification. That said, I completely agree with my fellow supervisors. That's all I have to say about this. This is insanity.
Are there any other board comments or questions?
I concur with the other supervisors. This is absolutely, I don't know who dreamed this up, where it came from, what, especially a rural county. I could see the larger areas, population-wise, has what it talks about in here, but Calaveras County, it's just, it doesn't make, even parts of it, even for larger population areas, doesn't make sense. It's just bureaucratic, I think, in a nutshell. So I'm in agreement with the other three supervisors that spoke on it.
Do businesses or the commercial, like defined under this, do they have an avenue to take recourse as hardship to comply with this?
Do they,
To take hardship, undue hardship, because some of this, we can't even, well, we can't provide the
they can
support
just,
to these businesses.
you know, it just depends on how much extra food they have. They could, you know, basically fib their records, and as far as that goes. And Doug Oliver brought that up, that all of a sudden all these restaurants aren't going to have any extra food left. But yeah, I appreciate all of your reactions, because that's what early on in 2020 and 21, all the supervisors said that the politicians in Sacramento have no idea how big this bill is. It's 127 pages for a large county, and the large counties are having a difficult time complying with it also. But we're exempt from a lot of the bill. It'd be really nice to move this ordinance forward so that we can be in compliance with the state. We don't run any risk of fines. And it also cuts back on the workload of the staff. We don't have a lot of county staff like all departments. And, the resolution was the first step. The ordinance is the second step. And just to move it forward, the first 2 years are basically education. There's no fines going to be levied or anything like that. It's just education. It'll be interesting to see if they can even do 75%, reduction in the next 5 years. And there is the possibility in 5 years from now that we'll just be exempt again. So,
if I may, if I may add, we actually talked to the state and tried to find out what the minimum we could put into the ordinance was, and I don't believe other counties did that. Most counties, including rural exempt counties that I've spoken with, actually included in the ordinance all of the organic waste collection piece, even if they were exempt from it. And so I think we got this down to the bare bones. They did, CalRecycle did expressly say that we had to include both the Tier 1 and Tier 2 generators. The idea being that it gives them time to be aware of what's coming. We agree that in integrated waste management and my office, we agree that this is onerous. Nobody likes it. My colleagues don't like it. Unfortunately, the way the statute and regulations are written give us very little room. And I don't think that rejecting the ordinance is going to turn out well for us in the end. Many counties who don't have an ordinance on the books, the alternative is to file a notice of intent to come into compliance later. And when you do that, then CalRecycle essentially tells you exactly what to do and exactly what to write. And so we deliberately drafted the minimum possible that we could get away with and still be deemed in compliance despite the fact that we were late to the table. And we are getting a thumbs up on this, keeping us out of the notice of intent territory. The fines for deliberate noncompliance are as high as $10,000 per day. And I do have a concern about our position in being able to successfully reject the ordinance at this point. So my recommendation to the board, as Paul said, would be to adopt it. And it can be amended as the regs change, or if it turns out that CalRecycle backs down due to legislative pressures, which there are right now, we certainly can come back and change it. But in terms of the phrase acts of God, I wasn't sure what Supervisor Callaway, what her concern was. I thought it was the phrase acts of God. I do think that we can change that phrase if that is the concern, as long as the qualifying events are kept in. But in terms of how this works and how much paperwork there is, etc., I don't see any room for us legally to fight this and win. That's just where I am.
Yeah, I would like to add too, in the first 2 years, this affects eight of our large grocery stores. And then in 2024, it may only affect 1 or 2, maybe 5 restaurants at the most. It's not that cumbersome. It's not like it affects the whole county. It's just a limited number of food facilities that will be affected.
But with those numbers, it doesn't make sense for all of how the agencies to take care of this. I mean, there's no avenue for them to distribute it. So what is the investment of just 5 restaurants, hypothetically, to even support that? I mean, we don't have a way to sustain that. I mean, for 5...
Where's it diverted to?
I mean, that's my concern. Okay, we implement it, but where is it going to go? I mean, it can't be on these restaurants to figure it out when the local agencies can't support this, or organization, unless they can find an exemption.
Supervisor Fullendorf, there is a provision that if we do not have the capacity built up so that there is no way for the edible food to be diverted to a food recovery organization, there is a way for the businesses to claim essentially a hardship, or that there's extenuating circumstances. The ordinance talks about what counts as extenuating circumstances, and one of the extenuating circumstances is if the jurisdiction does not have the capacity built up to handle the food.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I could just have a moment and kind of address some of those concerns that you've been speaking of. I have reached out to all of our food pantries. I have been in contact with the Resource Connection Food Bank. Currently, the food bank is a hub for at least 9 of the different pantries who are already contracted with the food bank. They're contracted under Feeding America, which in turn, if they're already contracted with the food bank and that under the Feeding America umbrella, that sufficient for their contract responsibilities. To shed some light on this a little bit, in talking to the food bank, she was actually pleased with some of this. And the reason being is it's actually, the onus is not placed on the food bank or the food pantries themselves, it's with the generators themselves. So in turn, prior to this, it has been very much placed on the food bank to be collecting these items. And so with their perspective, it was a little bit more spread out, if you will. So they are already contracted with Save Mart, Grocery Outlet. They have reached out to many of our large food generators already, and they're currently actively recovering food through them. So just from the standpoint of maybe the perspective of thinking that it is on our agencies, it's not. It is on the generators themselves. The component that is spread out to both the generators and the collection recovery agencies is the requirement to respond to our call for a capacity plan. So when we reach out to them to determine what kind of capacity we are needing or what kind of food is being generated, that is their responsibility to reach out to us, let us know how much food they are recovering, how much availability they have to store it, and how much the generators are generating, and if there is placement for that food. So in that's a plan that IWM is responsible for generating and submitting to the state. And I have, like I said, been in contact with all of the agencies within the county. They're more than happy to cooperate, and I think moving forward, it will be as seamless as possible. And I do have a lot of cooperation from these agencies already. So I guess what I'm saying is I haven't received a lot of pushback as of now, actually more of from the standpoint of cooperation and excitement to say, yeah, this is all that we have, that we can, this is our capacity. And sometimes we are at capacity and sometimes we are not. And if they're, for instance, the food bank, if they are needing additional cold food storage space, there are grants available to accommodate under the 1383 grant programs. So there are some resources for them under SB 1383 that have opened up some possibilities of increasing their food capacity storage. So I hope that kind of answered some of maybe those questions that you have. Happy to answer any additional ones.
What I heard you saying is that the generators would be delivering the food. I read the ordinance as the food recovery organizations will be picking it up.
No, the responsibility is not on the recovery organizations.
So Big Trees Market has to deliver what they have left to the Resource Connection or to the Senior Center in Murphy's, or?
Potentially, or they can work out an agreement with the food bank, and any existing agreement they already have can be modified to place that food. But we, as a county, we are kind of a liaison between the actual generators and the recovery agents, and we can help to kind of bridge that gap with resources, putting people in contact with each other. We have a pretty robust website that is, that is ready for these folks to reach out and get as much information as they would need, and additionally contact us for any questions.
So I'm trying to find it. Well, here's just one. A list of each food recovery that collects or receives its food pursuant to a contract they're required. You'll have to show me, but I don't remember seeing where it said that the generators delivered the food. Because that had been it was probably under GG. It was a lot of stuff under GG.
It is quite extensive.
So, I guess that's fine. I didn't read it that way at all. I read it as though the food recovery organizations have to do the pickup. And
No, and for clarity on the contract component, in our rural area and with our limited amount of generators, it really, most of them are already contracted under Feeding America, so it does relieve them of that responsibility of generating a new contract, because by being associated with the food bank, it covers that contract need.
food recovery organizations that will collect their edible food for food recovery. So, I mean, that's what I kept reading. As I said, the concept's great. I know you can go to the senior center for lunch and you'll see food there that comes from the grocery stores. I mean, that's already happening with some of the grocery stores and food banks and so forth. I guess my next question would be for Ms. Moss-Lewis. Is there any way we could put in the ordinance that as conditions come about that will be existing in Calaveras, we will amend it? I mean, we will agree, for example, usually in most of our contracts say, and if any state laws or something happens, you have to go by state law. Well, the state law does not apply to Calaveras. All parts of it do not apply, only some parts. Is there any out of jail words we could use?
I mean, I don't know that it would harm anything to say this ordinance can be amended as allowed by state regulations or Caliber Cycle directive or something along those lines, just to let people know that we're looking for avenues to change it. If you're asking whether I think we can leave out for now the portions of edible food recovery that right now don't have any application in Calaveras County, we've asked that question and been told no. But if you would like to add language communicating to the public that we're essentially looking for an avenue to make it less onerous when the state allows us to, I can certainly add language to that effect.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I've got a couple comments, and I read this, and I wasn't going to get into a long thing about it, but it does say for most counties beginning January 1st, 2022, these state regulations require organic waste collection services be provided to all commercial and residential generators. And this includes requirements for container colors and labeling, which I don't think is being done now with the color containers and everything separated. My question is, it says sampling and monitoring for containment and minimization. We're going to be on the hook for doing all that. Environmental health and all the regulations that go with food handling and transfer and make sure it's safe, that when it gets there and edible, that's all going to be, it sounds like a whole new department that's going to be set up or have to be set up in some of these larger counties just to handle the service. And providing refrigerated trucks and just inspections and making sure the right food is in the right colored container and how many miles it's traveled to get there and all of this. It just sounds like it's going to get just enormous, and our ordinance is pushing it off till 2026, and we don't know in 2026 if we'll be able to do it again. but it's just buying time to the point where eventually we're going to have to be in this business some way, some form, by increasing our staff, our vehicles, and these containers, whether they're reusable, how do you account for them being pre-washed or sanitized before they're sent back out? There's just a whole lot of things going on here that I'm not sure our size of county would be able to handle the costs of it without charging somebody somewhere, somehow, for handling fees to do the transportation and inspection on it and making sure what's being served. The other side of the coin is these larger commercial operations, when we don't have a number of them, I think it was mentioned 5, instead of going through all of that, at the end of the night, they put it back in the refrigerator and serve it tomorrow to the next customers tomorrow. And to avoid some of that, you don't know what's going to be going on. So, those are my comments. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, you are correct that throughout the state, curbside in larger counties and stuff has gone up double to 3 times. So, but at least we have this grace period of 5 years. So, and possible extension. The rural counties produce about 2.5%, in Northern California produce about 2.5% of the waste. So I suspect 5 years from now we're going to get another exemption because we're just kind of irrelevant compared to larger counties.
So what this is saying though is just I have some acreage and I have a big garden. I decided to grow my own vegetables and have my big garden. And any of the waste that I have, Cal Waste gives us a green container that you put your stuff in. I can no longer throw the tomatoes in there at the end of the season, the cucumbers and all of that stuff. That has to be set aside in certain containers and call somebody to come pick it up and send it out. Otherwise, I would be illegally putting it in this green waste container to ship off to the landfill.
In Napa, they put it in the green containers. They don't.
I'm just saying the green container is for
Yard
green waste, but if it's edible food, then it has to be handled separate. If I have extra tomatoes and I've had some money and I can't give them away or whatever, even peach, if I have a big peach tree,
well,
you're supposed to not be able to put those in a container and have Cal Waste pick it up and take it to the landfill. You're trying to avoid sending all this stuff to the landfill is what the ultimate thing is.
And I suspect over the next 5 years, the compost facilities the number of them will increase. A lot of them have, gone down because the regulations were so cumbersome. And biodigesters and stuff like that will be put in place.
It's the natural nitrogen circ of life. I mean, they're trying to circumvent. Never mind.
Well, my concern, so you brought Cal Waste, I mean, at that point, Cal Waste has the contract, so they're going to have to be responsible for providing those bins to customers, but it's not, so we'll probably see another bin in our front yard. But the concern is how this is forcing residents to have to pick up the services and the compliance that we're going to impose on residents to pay for something they may not necessarily afford. And we're in a unique situation where the county has our own landfill. We have a tool that we're not having like this Bay Area to ship it to another landfill on contract. We have our own facility. So that's where it gets gay for me is what is the residents and the commercial businesses going to have to pay another addition to comply with this and get services because they're forced to, not because, and Gary's right, I mean, going back to when I used to fight at the city at this with the League of City, representing the Environmental Policy Committee, a compost. So we're in the city, you can't do that. You don't have the means in the ground to do that. So there's just so many unique factors to Calaveras County that this does not make it amenable. And it's another state mandate to force down. But going back to the landfill, is that another caveat that we can use that we're unique in that situation to get out of this?
So there is allowances for self-hauling and composting still. So you would not be required to put your tomatoes in a separate bin. You still have the ability to either self-haul or to compost your items or feed them to the animals, which a lot of us in this rural area does, right? We feed it to our chickens, pigs, etc. So that is something that would be an allowable still. It would be more of a documentation of how many self-haulers you have in your area to qualify, and that would meet that need of the organic collection services. So again, that is 5 years from now, but I couldn't agree with you more, the concerns about implementing something like that. And I hope that...
Then can we make sure that when the contract comes up again for waste, that we're not allowing Cal Waste or any other vendor to force 2 bins in one, like they're doing in the city of Roseville?
That would be up for, that would be for
Because
another
then that's how they're
discussion,
going to
I'm
get away with residents paying for it. It's because they're doing the 2 bins together versus 2 separate, and then you're not able to self-hauler, claim self-hauling.
Right, and it's going to be interesting. I have, been in contact with surrounding counties that are being required to do the organic collection, and I've been communicating with them to see how they're navigating through their contracts with their franchise haulers. And so it'll be an interesting next few years to just see how things evolve through this.
There's also, like, even in the larger counties right now, like Madera County, way up in the foothills and stuff, there's, based on census tracts, there's exemptions where they don't have to meet the intent of the code. So Calaveras County, there would be a lot of exemptions, even if we were required to, in 2026, to move forward with full implementation of Senate Bill 1383. So.
Okay. Is there any other board comment? I was going to ask the board, if we have to reluctantly support this, to send a letter to Cal Waste, or Cal Recycle, not Waste, sorry, telling them how much we hate it. And Marita, you can add your act of God comment to that.
I'm just going to say now, I cannot support this. I understand the concept, support the concept. I see it over at the senior center, and I'm glad our generators are supportive of it. But as it's written, and I don't fault staff, I appreciate what Moss Lewis has done about reaching out to Cal Waste, to Cal Recycling. I've been before them before. I'm more than happy to go before them again. But for me, this was a little bit over the top, including acts of God. But that wasn't, I'd be happy if you take it out, but I still won't support. I still cannot support this in concept, I think. And that we should write them a letter and explaining why and what it is that we could support. So that's why I'm going to be voting no on this. I don't want to spend $10,000 a day, but
I think that your letter would be joining many others.
good. So maybe the question is, and maybe Ms. Moss Lewis could address it, if we wrote a letter, I mean, I don't know where my colleagues are because the chair hasn't called for the vote. I'm a little bit ahead of her. If we wrote a letter saying we can't support the ordinance as they want it, but this is our recommendation, how an ordinance should be for Calaveras County, and see what they say.
I mean, the board is certainly free to choose its own risks. The concern is that we're already late and Cal Recycle has given Lake counties a grace period until April 1st. I could add language in the purpose statement stating that a majority of the board or the entire board is adopting this ordinance under protest and disagrees with it. I know there are legislative pushes against this, that many rural counties are working together to try to relax some of the applicability of these provisions to rural counties. There may be traction in that regard. Over the next 5 years, there's also a possibility of reapplying for a rural exemption at the end of the 5 years, and it might be by then that the state relaxes its grip on the small counties that only provide a small percentage of the greenhouse gas through this type of waste. So I would be happy to draft language into the purpose statement or the findings or both, saying that this is being adopted under protest. That would be one thing we could do to make our voice heard. Other than that, my recommendation would be to pursue legislative avenues and lobbyist avenues to try to get this changed.
I like the concept of what you're saying, but they're going to say, so what? It's done, it's approved. You know, it's sort of like the fluff, and I don't want to beat this up anymore.
Supervisor
Madam Chair.
Garamendi.
Thank you. I don't like this any more than anybody else does. I would hope that, in 5 years when this comes, we could talk about, instead of different buckets, we offer people who self-haul composting, where most of us self-haul do that anyway. But, I think it's good to fight this on the state level, using Environmental Services, JPA, using RCRC, using CSAC. They've got really big problems. This law is going to change if it doesn't work. We're going to stand to benefit by being part of the crew, part of the pack on this. I don't feel like spending staff time writing a letter, which is going to get round filed. Let's just keep working with our state organizations. Let's accept this. It sucks, but we have to move forward. So I would make a motion, Madam Chair. When you're ready.
I still need to do public comment, but we still have another comment by a supervisor. You still, okay. Okay. I'm going to open up public comment. Is there anything online? I'm not seeing anything in the room.
There is no online public comment.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Stopper.
Mr. Garamendi, I'd be willing to make the painful motion to move forward with this if you're okay with it. But, it says financing. Prior to commencing enforcement of the ordinance, staff will analyze what funding sources are available. Under duress, I would move this as recommended by, everyone here from staff. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to approve any financing for enforcement on this, ever.
That's not part of the resolution though, right? You make a motion to move the resolution as it stands.
Right.
Okay. I will support moving the resolution as it stands. I don't make comments there forever, so.
I guess that was a little hard forever, but yeah, you're right.
Supervisor Callaway? Nothing. Supervisor Vice Chair Tokanoi?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys understand that we're implementing the components to all the regulations of what it says here. That's what we're doing. We're just delaying them for 5 years because the state is allowing, but we're still implementing their policy. And that's what really hurts, that we just don't get an exemption. We have to implement and then delay actions on it for 5 years. So even at the end of 5 years, if they don't allow us to delay it any further, they're already implemented. So boom, it goes right in. So I reluctantly will be voting yes, reluctantly, because it seems to be the only way that we would get an exemption of 5 years to delay this, and hopefully over the course of the 5 years, people come to their senses on this and just adapt to the highly populated areas that it may need to be done in.
So you have a motion and a second? Yes, right? Okay. All those in favor? Reluctantly? Aye. All those nay?
Nay.
4-1. Okay.
Take it up at CSAC, Marita, go to work.
RCRC's done a good job.
Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, board. Appreciate it.
See you, we know it's good news when it's
Next, we have item number 20.
Item 20, action item, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, revise the Board of Supervisors assignment to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy Board.
I nominate Marita, she's the alternate on it anyway.
No, it's a 2-year commitment, so I'd like to nominate Supervisor Garamendi, and I will like to stay as the alternate for at least this year. Thank you.
Smash. Gary, I agree. I think Marita would be great, but I also understand the 2 years, and I would be happy to serve.
Is there any public comment on the nomination?
There is no online public comment.
Okay.
I'll move this item, Madam Chair, with Supervisor Garamendi filling in for the seat. Marita is still the alternate, at least for the remainder of this year.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to item number 21.
Item 21, resolution, Human Resources, adopt a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the County of Calaveras and Calaveras Management Union for the term of February 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2026.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Management Director. And I'm very happy to bring before you today the resolution approving the memorandum of understanding between Calaveras County and the Calaveras Management Union. The Calaveras Management Union was recognized as the professional organization for management and professionals in June of 21, and we have been meeting and conferring for a brand new MOU, and we finally came to terms, and I want to thank the Calaveras Management Union bargaining team, Mark Kinzlach, Rick Koss, Christine Kelly, for all of their hard work on this, and so I would like to point out one of our economic adjustments in the MOU is that after board adoption, the first pay period after board adoption, we will have a 4% COLA. And then the first pay period after January 1st for the next 4 years, there will be a 3% COLA. So we do have a 5-year agreement. Is there any questions?
Any question by board members? Supervisor Powers?
Oh, no, sorry.
There's no question by the board members? Is there any public comment?
There's no online public comment.
Okay, and there is no one in the room, so we bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
So move this item.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nay? No? Okay. Okay, thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
You're up next, though. Item number 22.
Item 22, Resolution, Human Resources. Adopt a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding MOU between the County of Calaveras and Calaveras Supervisors Union for the term of February 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2026.
So along with the Calaveras Management Union, we bargained both contracts at the same time, the Management Union and the Supervisors Union. So once again, I want to thank Cody Makowitz and also Mark Kunzak, Rick Koss, and Christine Kelly for their work on these MOUs. And the Supervisors Union is also getting the COLA, which will be after board, first pay period after board adoption of 4%, and then 3% after January 1st of each year. Can I answer any questions?
Are there any board questions? I'm assuming you guys don't have a comment? No?
Your mic's on.
Okay. Any public comment? Any online comment?
There is no online public comment.
Okay. Bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff, for all your work on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to supervisor announcements, and I will start to my left with Supervisor Callaway.
Would the board be interested? I'd be happy to write a letter to Calway's copy to RCRC and our legislators on our feelings about this ordinance. I should have maybe discussed it when it was on the agenda.
Is there any comment from the board?
Sure, I'll support you, Marita.
Okay, that's one. Guess we could take a poll.
What? That word came out.
Careful how you present that word. Do we get to see the letter before you send it, Ms. Callaway?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I can support it in
I
that
think
fashion.
Sarah wants to chime in.
Yeah, so what I would recommend, since this is not on the agenda and this is just supervisor announcements, that if Supervisor Callaway wants to go ahead and drop the letter, and then we can bring that back to the board for a vote.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Everyone?
I agree.
Yeah. We can bring that, yeah. Thank you. Anything else? No? Okay, we'll move on to Supervisor Garamendi.
Nothing required to report, Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Toffenelli.
Nothing to report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Stopper.
I did my rounds with all the public works employees to all the different sites. It was really good to talk to them all. Thank you, Ms. Callaway, for being up there in Arnold. It was a pleasure. Mr. Garamendi, we did San Andreas and everything, so I think that's the only reason Mr. Toffenelli was not invited to the one here, because they did the Glencoe, and we would have had 3 guys at the same time. And I asked them a lot of good questions just about, what their needs were and everything. I'll bring that up during a different time. But it was really good to see them all, and the guys that are on the ground and that are actually doing the work. We had a Fish and Game Commission meeting. We'll be doing, it's looking like, proceeding, we'll be doing Kids Fishing Day up in Murphy's again, Ms. Callaway. So we're looking forward to that, most likely the beginning of May. There's a few other things we're set back with COVID, but that's one that's outside that, we do get a really good turnout on, so I look forward to doing that. I think there was a couple other things, but they weren't that important because they're not popping up in my head at the time. So, thank you.
And I have nothing to report at this time. And with that, we will reconvene into closed session and report out at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Are we off yet?